All right, everybody, welcome to today's ISFSI Modern Mentor presentation, The Art of Preparation, Strategies for Instructor Success. We are joined today by Thomas Kuglin from the Center for Public Safety Excellence. The discussion today will help instructors navigate their way through the 4 categories of preparation and develop strategies for growth and development in their instruction. A little bit about Tom. Tom is a 17-year fire service professional who currently serves as the University Manager for the Center of Public Safety Excellence. He is a designated Chief Training Officer through the Center for Public Safety Excellence and is a nationally certified Fire Officer 4 and Fire Instructor 3. He holds a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership from Fort Hays State University and is an MBA candidate from LSU Shreveport. He currently serves as a board member on the IAFC Industrial Fire and Safety Section and is a John Maxwell team member. Thank you, Tom, for joining us today. The stage is now yours.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you to everyone that carved a little bit of time out of your day today to listen to my presentation. I hope that you get some good value-added nuggets to take back to your organizations and to help you become a better instructor. One thing I will say is this presentation is based off of an article that was published earlier this month in Fire Engineering. If you had an opportunity to read that or have an opportunity to find that issue to kind of do a little backstory on it, that's where you can find it. What we're going to cover today, some main objectives. I'd like to illustrate the correlation between planning and preparation and instructor effectiveness, identify characteristics that define each preparation zone, develop strategies to guide growth and development in instruction, and then develop a model to guide for intentional action in moving from one zone to another. I want you to think back on past education or training that you've been a part of, either as a student, an instructor, or a leader. What were some of those things that made them good or bad experiences, or better yet, less than desirable outcomes? And in doing so, how many times have you caught yourself thinking of better ways it could have been done after the fact? I know I've done it plenty of times. And then also, what were some of those common denominators that you've noticed? Was it planning? Was it poor preparation? Was there just a lack of desire to be there? Was there content atrophy? And what I mean by that is, was the content being wasted away by the way it was presented or the way that you presented it? There are a million and one things we could talk about in reference to these. So I just want you to kind of think about some of those good and bad experiences. So in my ongoing quest to become a better instructor and evaluator of instructors, I felt it was important to draw correlations between certain things. So what I came up with and what we'll be focusing on today is the correlation between preparation time and its impact on instructor effectiveness. With me being a process thinker, the best way for me to kind of understand these relationships was by creating a model. So essentially what we have is on the vertical axis, as you see, which is preparation time, 2 phases that kind of go along with that, no time and ample time. And then on the horizontal axis for instructor effectiveness, the phases are least effective and most effective. I believe an instructor at some point in their career has been in any one of these 4 boxes. It is also quite possible to be in all 4 at the same time, depending on different circumstances that kind of come up throughout your career, throughout the day as you're doing training. My goal here is to be able to identify which box you're in and how to grow and develop consistency throughout this model. Each box shown here, we will call it a zone. So now that we have the general model structure built here, let's take a look at some zone boundaries. Each box represents a level of preparation and a level of time. As we can start to see, the correlation is taking place there. So let's talk for a minute and define what these boundaries are. And just like anything else in the education world, there needs to be some sort of rubric that defines exactly what we're looking for, or in other words, how we're going to grade or measure what fits in these. So let's start from worst to first in that progression. So if you look at the bottom left corner, you have the unprepared, no discretionary time. And usually just a couple things, I'll just list out a couple things that kind of fall into these boxes. I'll give you an idea of, kind of what we're looking at here. So for that one, that would include things like last minute changes, last minute instructor changes. They might have somebody scheduled for a month and then something happens and you say, oh, hey, by the way, you're up because, we need you to fill in. Can be kind of hectic at times. And then a lot of times that, there's just a lack of planning in general. The next box up from that, directly above that, is the unprepared discretionary time box. This is typically when you'll find an instructor has been assigned well in advance, but they may not have reviewed the lesson plans. They may not have set up the classroom properly. They may not have ensured availability of all the resources. So they've had the time to prepare, they just didn't prepare. The next one is prepared no discretionary time. That's the bottom right-hand side there. Usually this is going to be your more seasoned, experienced instructors that fall into this box. Not much time that they use, but the reliance on comfort and knowledge of the material is basically what's getting them by. They've taught the subject and the content for so long that it's just become second nature and just a click of a finger to kind of get through it. So even though they don't have ample time to prepare, they're able to utilize those experiences to get them through. And then the last one directly above that is our prepared discretionary time. This is where instructors, training officers, training chiefs, this is where we should all strive to live in this box. Remember earlier I said, given unforeseen circumstances at times that this, depending on that dynamic, it can cause us to kind of fluctuate in and out of these boxes. But this is where the consistency, the growth, and the development lies in this box. This is where our best experiences and instructors and for students will live. Just a couple tips on this particular slide here with the full, most of the model in place. If you want to use this as a practical application, either individually or as a group, at some point, take each zone boundary and just make a list of things, circumstances, different situations that would fit into each one of these. You'll see later where it'll come into play. So they'll look like note cards, so use them as such and then write things on the back. So each zone has an overarching outcome based on the parameters that we talked about before, as you can see with the addition of the two circles there. Ultimately, these are the overarching outcomes that we'll typically see come out of these zones. For the unprepared, no discretionary time, you're going to get a loss of engagement of the student and the instructor. That's probably your largest outcome that you're going to get from that particular box. Next, unprepared discretionary time. Your overarching outcome is typically going to be inconsistent delivery. There might be times when you can make it through based on your experiences or, depending on what level of time you have to look over things before you actually deliver instruction. And then there's just going to be some times that you're just not going to be able to make it. So with that together, like that ebb and flow of inconsistent delivery, that's what's going to happen. When you have ample time, but you're going to be least effective as an instructor. The prepared, no discretionary time, I like to call that these are where our resilient instructors live. Like I mentioned before, being prepared, but there's not really much time to do anything with it. There's a heavy reliance on experience and just knowledge, extreme knowledge of the content that, they would be able to make it through. But that doesn't mean that, just because there's resiliency involved doesn't mean that it's going to automatically translate to a positive outcome for a student. And then lastly, we have the prepared discretionary box. And I like to think of this group here as our instructor leaders. Those are the ones that, are kind of on the front lines of leading the next generation. So now that we've kind of built out the model and we kind of got a good understanding of the causes, effects, and relationships, we can begin to develop strategies for success now, and ways to grow and develop and kind of migrate from one zone to the other. So let's look at some keys for success that I feel strongly about in my experiences as a instructor, as a student, as a overseeing training divisions and programs. Essentially, there are two groups of instructors, those that are new and or aspiring, and those that are experienced. I've noted 5 keys for each that will kind of guide in your success. So let's take a look at new and aspiring first. As you see, inquisitive. What I mean by inquisitive, I mean, having that genuine interest in searching for knowledge and more of a deep diving into a specific topic. I know for me personally, if I'm out driving somewhere or if I'm involved in, any kind of fire service, anything related, and I come across something I just become inquisitive about, I'll sit there and I'll, do a search on my phone, or I'll get on the computer and look and just try and find out every last thing that I can, and just do that deep dive. I think that's very important when it comes to a new and inspiring instructor, just to have that inquisition. Next, talk about initiative. Essentially, if you want to do something, or you want to be something, or you have an immense goal that you want to achieve, simply put, just do it. Just have the initiative, take it upon yourself, and do it. Get it done. Doing your homework. Basically, that's, taking the time, reviewing the content, reviewing the lesson plans, ensuring that you have the proper resources in place, make sure your classroom is set up properly, make adjustments as you need to, and just make sure everything is in place needed to instruct to ensure that there's an effective and conducive learning environment. Next, unconventional. What I mean by this is, don't stop once you've become certified as an instructor. I've seen it too many times where, somebody will go get certified as an instructor 1, and that's kind of where their efforts stop. So just my advice is, pursue loftier goals, set bigger goals for yourself. Put on your list fire instructor 2 if you if you aspire to oversee a training program or division one day. Go get fire instructor 3. Do some job shadowing, workflow learning, which is a kind of a very hot topic in the academic training and development corporate world, is doing simultaneous workflow learning, to where if you're doing a real-time task on the job, there's simultaneous learning that's going on with that. Teaching others is probably one of the bigger ways you teach others to reinforce your own skills. So just be unconventional. Do, pick up those things that will help you and help you be different. And then last for that side is be moldable. Learn from others. Find a mentor. Mold into what you want to become. And then we look at kind of on the experience side. As you see mentor up there, guide and influence the up and coming. Probably one of the biggest things is pass on the wisdom. Your knowledge does you no good if it's just bottled up inside. That's, we have to be to where, we want to spread everything that we know, pass on that wisdom. Be a coach, help others by cultivating relationships. Those relationships will guide them in finding answers to their own questions. That's essentially what coaching is. Not telling somebody, not giving somebody the answers, but helping them search for their own answers. Transform, take others to new horizons. Take them to places where they never thought that were possible. Scalability, Expand on your own education, your own training, your own knowledge and experience. Write articles, develop training plans, develop programs, seek professional designations, present at conferences, all those that scale you up from where you currently are to make you better. And then lastly, boundary span. This is one of my favorites. I'm a huge component of boundary spanning. Essentially, think beyond the mainstream. Seek different ideas and concepts from other professions and adapt it into your own that make a difference. So taking all those things, the next step is determine how we develop. So I've come up with 6 steps to help you do that. Number 1 is identify your current performance level. Where do you currently see yourself performing? Number 2, identify the performance gap. Number 3, identify desired performance level. So as you see, you kind of laid out where you are, where you want to be. So now where's that middle point? Where does that gap lie? And then identify an actionable intent plan. And when I mean actionable intent, that kind of goes beyond just saying you're going to do something. Make it intentional, turn it into an action, and go ahead and do it and make yourself better. 5 is visualize. So with me personally, I like to use a lot of different tools and graphs and charts and models and processes and all that other kind of things out there to help me visualize. I learn better as I visualize, and it kind of helps me keep on track. And then with that, you're evaluating your progress and you're just making adjustments as you go along. One tool I like to use is called the self-reflection feedback loop. So remember those items I mentioned to list on the back of each zone earlier, the note card idea, that those 4 boxes kind of look like 4 note cards. This is where you can identify how to improve those. For example, you take one of those, plug it into this tool, determine what your actual level is, what is your desired level, what's the gap that is stopping you from getting to your desired level, and then what is your intent or action to improve it. You can plug anything into here. It doesn't have to be the things that are written on the back of the cards. So when it's all said and done, what we have is a model that looks like this. One thing I want to point out in here is you see the red line splitting the model in half in an upward progression. This is kind of our equilibrium, or our moment of trust, or what I say moment of trust, momentum of trust. This is kind of where we get all of our validity, credibility comes from here, our respect as an instructor, our influence as an instructor, training officer, or training chief. This is where all of that comes from, and just being able to harness all of the ebbs and flows that are going to come. We're not always going to live in one of these boxes. If you truly want to become a better instructor and lead others, let's face it, there's going to be times when we're going to bounce around these, but the key is to have that balance, maintain that balance in the center there, and always try and strive to be that instructor leader. So it kind of gives you a good representation of all the components of the model and how they correlate, and just the relationship that they have on each other. So this is kind of my instructor success formula. If you put all these things together, education, whether it's going to training classes or higher education in the form of a degree, going to conferences, reading, that's just one part of it. You combine that with actually learning the material, having a firm grasp and understanding of what you've been educated with. Take those two, add training to it. So this is your practical applications out in the field, getting your hands dirty, trying it out, seeing if it works, failing, learning from the failures. And then you add your experience into that, which is obviously, running calls and taking those things you've learned, taking that training into account, and just adding that experience piece to it. From that, we throw in a little boundary spanning, taking things from other professions. For instance, there's a lot of things to be said for things that come out of corporate training and development that are typically not seen, more so in the business world. But why not grab stuff out of that? There is tons and tons of things that can be. I've ran across tons of things where I was like, that is really cool. I can adapt that. I can use that in the fire service and just adapt it in my own way to be able to help people in the fire service. There's so much of that out there. Some other areas for boundary spanning that you can get some great stuff: business world, adult education, human resource development, talent development in corporate America, public health stuff. I mean, just anything and everything, any other type profession. There's so much to learn and so many things that have been developed over the years that, you can just take one look at it and just know that, hey, if I put a little creativity into it, I can make this into something really cool that would be able to help and make an impact. And then, of course, I talked about that actionable intent. It's one thing of saying you're going to do something, but what really matters is, is it intentional? Is it something that you truly are going to do? And then are you putting action behind it? So actually going out there and doing what you say you're going to be doing. So education, learning, training, experience, boundary spanning, and actionable intent, to me, all equal instructional leadership success. And the beauty about this whole presentation is, all of this stuff is based on what I've seen in my 17 years as an instructor, as a student, as somebody who, has built several training divisions from the ground up. And, these are things that I've seen that have worked for me. The beauty of this is, you find things that work for you and you kind of, work your own, build your own models, or for example, use this model. You might find something that, hey, you know what, I can add this piece in there. That would be my formula. I would highly encourage you to do that. This is all just stuff I wanted to share to hopefully, bring some value to make better instructors out there. So what I want to kind of leave you with here is for those of you that do know me, I'm kind of a quote junkie, making my own sayings and all. I kind of feel like Socrates sometimes, but I thought this was very applicable. And wings are meant for many to come under. And what I mean by that is, this is where you can become most influential on people, is when you become a mentor, when you take people under your wing, you guide them, you influence them, you inspire them, you motivate them to be better than they ever thought possible. And that's kind of what happened to me. Is early in my career being an instructor, I was terrified. They said, hey Tom, you're up. I want you to teach a little something on, throwing ladders. And, I was scared. I didn't, I was like, man, I kind of unprepared. I don't really know what I'm talking about yet. I'm new in the fire service, and, you have those people that are around you, and looking from the outside in, if that was me down the road, like, what, hey, I think I can make an impact on this person. I can take them under my wing and show them sharing the wisdom, sharing the knowledge, being there for them, taking an investment in, what they're trying to do, and they become more comfortable that way. And then they start teaching others, and then that kind of reinforces their own skills. So it's important to share your wisdom with others, and that's the biggest influencer to help others grow and succeed. So I'm sorry this was kind of short. I may have sped through it a little bit, but I want to thank you for taking the opportunity to listen today. There's my contact information if you'd like to reach out and discuss anything, and I'm highly advised if you'd like to reach out and got an idea and you want to collaborate on something, by all means reach out, and let's talk shop and let's continue to push the fire service forward in a positive direction. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Tom. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment box and we'll address them as they come in. Tom, what are some other resources that are available that will help in the development of teaching strategies?
That's a good question. Some things that I've always kind of looked at is, when I mentioned boundary spanning earlier, I mentioned, education that goes back to the world of pedagogy, which is, basically teaching children, or, back in the, I want to say the 1950s, there was a gentleman by the name of Edward Thorndike who had basically came up with the principles of learning, or more commonly the laws of learning. This is where the law of recency and the law of, kind of where all that stuff came from. And, I've used that as a kind of an outline earlier on in my career to kind of, when I'm building let's say a live burn session with my organization, I would use those kind of laws in there that are, they're basic enough and they're very applicable to just about anything. That would kind of help you guide, build a training course or program. So, name's Edward Thorndike, and they're, principles of learning and the laws of learning. I think they're invaluable teaching strategies to kind of use from, a true teaching profession.
If something were to come up where you weren't accurately able to plan, how do you better organize your time to stay on track?
Well, like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, I'm kind of a process thinker. So any type of model or process or something that I can come up with to help me. And it's probably about a year ago, I had come up with a model that's basically a task management or a daily time management model. And it basically looks at, you get a pile of stuff, and it holds true as an instructor. Not everything goes as planned. You get stuff dumped on you. You're not able to, training's delayed, or you have to cancel or reschedule. You're just figuring out, you're overwhelmed by a pile of stuff now, and what are you going to do with it? How am I going to organize to get back on track? So it's just some couple things I had put in that model is, determine what are those things that I have to get done now. How do they play into, the daily mission or the daily activities that have to get done? Then I take a look at the next batch and say, hey, what can I defer until tomorrow? Does it have to be done now? And then I'll set that group aside. And then whatever's left out of those, I can then say, hey, all right, now with what I have left, who can I delegate these to? I don't have to do every single thing. I have a great crew, or I have great people to be able, that are willing and able to help me do things. So find those folks and find those tasks that you can delegate out to them. And you'd be surprised on how much more organized your day gets, and how that pile of stuff that happens to build up on the desk, how much that diminishes because you have a plan together. So it's always helped me.
Those tips are always good to have. And also, lastly, what's the best method or advice to move through each zone without hitting a plateau and getting discouraged?
I know it's tough to hit a plateau and and kind of feel like you're spinning your wheels. Kind of the best things I can advise for that is just keep at it, remain determined. And things that have always helped me is It really helps. And just, in that regard, it's.
Oh, Tom, I think you're coming in and out.
Am I back?
Yes.
All right, sorry about that. Um, so when I think of a plateau, I know the common mindset on that is, well, I can't go anymore. I'm just not. I'm static. I'm not moving anywhere. I'm not going forward. I'm not going backwards. I'm just stuck. When I look at a plateau, I think of, hey, I'm on top of the plateau. So what is going on at the bottom of the plateau? So you've reached a pinnacle there, and you're kind of set yourself apart from those that are on the bottom. It's just a different mindset to use. So just one thing I would just advise is when you hit a plateau, just kind of have a different mindset on what that actually means to you, and just keep pushing through. Utilize, if you have to build a tool or something to help you along, do it. I know it's not everybody's is the same, but it's always helped me kind of visualize, and see where my vision's going and what I got to do to get there.
Kind of like perception.
Exactly.
All right. Well, if no one else has any other questions for Tom, I just want to add a note to say if you've got a suggestion for a future webinar, whether you'd like to host one yourself or someone that would be a good fit for this webinar series, send us an email or give us a call. The membership email at isfsi.org is a great tool. And I would be remiss if I didn't invite everyone to register for the fall conference this year in Covington, Georgia. The date's September 23rd through the 27th. We've got the Educational Leadership Academy going on Monday and Tuesday, with the basement fire classroom on Wednesday, hands-on training on Thursday. Hands-on training on Wednesday, the classrooms on Tuesday, and then the 2-day educational sessions on Thursday and Friday. Registration's open. Early bird registration runs through September 1st. Members can attend the conference right now for $150 for the 2-day session. So I encourage you to look into that if you are interested in coming out and joining us in Georgia this year. Again, this session was recorded, so it will be available on the website. If we've got no more questions, we'll close it out and we'll see you next month. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate everybody for letting me take some time out of your day. Thank you.
Everybody have a great day.